Welcome back, cool cats. Tonight's episode is going to be short and sweet, going over updated patterns and targets on SPY, QQQ, TLT, the ADD, and Dixie. But stick around, because I'm going to share some never-before-seen key levels on SPY and QQQ that I identified while I've been healing from my surgery. These levels blew my mind. It hurts to see it, but I was right on my swing trade. Remember how I said that I swung puts on QQQ on that last Thursday on the 7th? I was off by the reversal by 1 day. Look at this. The following Monday is when we finally got the beginning of the reversal, eventually leading to an entire 21-point drop from the beginning of this reversal. And as crazy as it sounds, had I bought the 514 QQQ puts expiring Monday the 18th, tomorrow, I could have turned anywhere between $250 to $500 per contract into over $1,800 per contract. That would have been roughly anywhere between 4x to a 7x return, depending on the entry. And honestly, as a trader, there's no worse feeling than being right, but early. This big old rising wedge on the ADD that I called out before, it did actually break down, but it took 3 days of consolidation before it actually did. And now if we draw some trend lines, it appears that it's trying to form a symmetrical triangle, meaning that the market really is trying to decide, does it want to go up from here or down? And we're going to probably find out pretty soon. Dixie, the dollar strength index, is above this main resistance line that I covered in my last video, and it's showing a lot of bullish strength for the dollar. It obviously broke above these previous two highs, but it has yet to break above this previous high, which was 107.348. But I feel very strongly if it can break that high and if it can hold above this main line, it could continue even higher, and I would suspect that TLT could continue heading down since they do tend to have a strong inverse correlation. And it's been a few episodes since I've pointed this out, but when we zoom out to the weekly time frame on the Dixie, we can see what appeared to be a falling wedge pattern with the breakout. If this is legitimate, the breakout target has the dollar going all the way up to about 114, which is confluent with this very, very long-running main resistance line. And it would also indicate that the markets are pricing in a lot more risk premium. And if Dixie keeps pumping like this, I could see an instance where the market decides to go down. I mentioned TLT, so let's take a quick look at it. We have a clearly defined descending triangle on TLT, which I actually shared this on social media. I've got to zoom out to the daily time frame, but you can see we have an upside target of around 95 or a downside target of around 84.50. And we are technically below this main resistance level right now. Where TLT heads from here is going to be largely dependent upon what Dixie does, but on basically every time frame, we're below resistance on the monthly, below resistance on the weekly, below resistance on the daily. Truthfully, the only thing that we're slightly above resistance on right now is on the 15-minute time frame, and we're just wicking slightly above it. Now let's look at those levels on SPY and QQQ. This is what I was talking about. I had to zoom all the way out to the monthly time frame. You can see here that we have a very well-defined channel that's essentially going all the way back to October of 2007. QQQ has respected this support and resistance this entire time, all of these years. What's also kind of interesting is if you go back to October of 2007 and you draw this main resistance line and you connect this here, and then you can see we've got this kind of like this median line that goes in between the top and the bottom. And it's almost like it is dividing the market into exuberance versus like normal upward movement. As crazy as it sounds, we're essentially resting on that line right now. And in some ways, that kind of indicates that the party could get even hotter before blowing off. And if we zoom into the weekly, there's also this parallel channel in purple that obviously is pretty well defined. We've got a clearly defined resistance and support level that we bounced around in. And the same thing is we're basically right in the middle of that right now. So technically speaking, we're kind of in no man's land right now. What's interesting to me though is when you switch over to SPY, you can see that the levels for these channels is a little bit different. And that if we trace this main resistance line over, we can see that unlike QQQ that has a little bit of space to run, SPY has already touched that main resistance line. And I've shared this before, but on the weekly time frame, like when we look at QQQ on the RSI, it's inside of a symmetrical triangle pattern right now and in the middle. Since markets tend to move from highs to lows, it seems more likely that the market will now continue to the lower bound first, but you never really know. I mean, support-wise on the daily time frame, there's plenty of room to move down on the daily Bollinger Band here in blue. And on the daily time frame, we've actually broken below the baseline of the Ichimoku cloud and below the 21-day simple moving average, but we're actually resting on the first portion of the Ichimoku cloud support. I mean, so technically speaking, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see price come back up here and basically fill this gap up to around 504. And we can obviously see that the futures are already bouncing. And then similarly for SPY, I could see it coming up and filling this gap to around 590. And then potentially both of them could still go lower. You've got to keep in mind that whenever you have strong impulsive moves like what we saw after the election results, you often end up with an equally big symmetrical triangle. So I could absolutely see this do a little bit of a dead cat bounce here and then come down, maybe come down somewhere around here in like the 573, 574 range, bounce back up. And the main thing is that NVIDIA earnings are going to be out after the bell on Wednesday. And I could really see the markets consolidating up to those earnings. Now, there's no main economic catalysts that are coming out. And if you'd like, check my last video for a more in-depth analysis and to hear what I said about NVIDIA. And if you missed them, I made multiple posts on X, StockTwits, and the YouTube community tab going over gold, SLV, TLT, and Bitcoin. So make sure to subscribe and follow me so you won't miss those. And as always, nothing that I share is financial advice, and you should always do your own DD. If you enjoy this content, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And without further ado, here is today's trading rule to live by.